Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to Aquarius Rising Africa. And I have with me again for our monthly show the awesome Leo Zagami. Hello, Leo. How are you? Really good to have you
I see
back.
you're back. I see you're back. So that's good. You're back in South Africa. We have a better connection, and I'm just recovering from the Turkey of Thanksgiving, so I'm just a little bit still in the sleepy mode. Too much turkey, but we had a great Thanksgiving, and this is my it was my first Thanksgiving as an American citizen, so a very special occasion for me. And I'm also very glad that we are finally in a purged of communism and Marxism, United States of America. Really hoping this presidency comes as soon as possible because it's there's so much damage that Joe Biden and his administration are doing just in the last few weeks, and probably before 20th of January, we're going to still see a lot of damage done by these criminals. But in the meantime, we are definitely celebrating.
Absolutely. Well, I just want to also say I hope all of you Americans had an amazing Thanksgiving yesterday. I know, it's not today still there for you. I know I'm a few hours ahead of a couple of you. And, again, and I said it on Jesse's show as well, I'm very grateful to all of you because the last 4 years on this channel has been amazing. I've met incredible people. And I mean, you guys in the chats are incredible. I feel like I know you all. It's like we have our own little family, and I know the majority of you are Americans. So I hope you all
I'm
had.
actually sharing with you my turkey and all the feelings on a pic. I think you can put it on here. Here we are. Here we are. See, they're very traditional, and so very nice, I must say. Great turkey, and then you have, of course, all the fillings you see on the table. This is typical of this great American tradition that we have, that really represents legacy also of Abraham Lincoln, who this president who found himself in a civil war, putting together this concept to unify the country, and still today is felt as a unifying moment for the United States of America. So thank you for showing also to your audience this great pic of my first Thanksgiving as an American citizen.
That's amazing. Well, there's lots of things that are happening this year, as being the first year of you being an American citizen, right? I mean, you
Yes,
working with Trump.
and formally renouncing in June to my Italian and European citizenship, so not to have any further problems with a continent which, unfortunately, we still see in the hands of a bunch of warmongers and technocrats. I mean, what is happening in the last couple of weeks with Germany issuing a secret document of 1,000 pages for transfer of soldiers, munitions, medicines to the front line. And then we have also Great Britain saying they're ready for direct confrontation with Russia. We see Prince William all dressed up, geared up in his military, all trying to look very ready for the party, And I explained that Prince William is, for me, probably the most significant candidate to the office of Antichrist of the end times. And this is not really, it's not a joke. I mean, I explored this concept in volume 8 of my Confessions, showing also all the connections with Hollywood, which we have been reminded of during the fortunately failed campaign of Kamala Harris that just came out of her silence a couple of days ago, looking completely train wreck, like she had been, I don't know,
Yeah.
partying for a few days, her hair all over the place, her look. I mean, she's probably starting to look a little bit like Hillary after she lost in 2016. Hillary went on a drunken phase that for a few months she was drinking a lot. So probably she's doing the same thing. I don't know how happy is the husband. Actually, from a CA chief of station I know, I heard that there were rumors that Kamala Harris was divorcing. But now suddenly we saw Kamala with her husband on Thanksgiving, but very awkward also the Thanksgiving message that she gave, because it was exactly with the same surrounding, the same look, the same clothes she was wearing on Tuesday when she gave that failed message that looked like a drunken message. So was it recorded on Tuesday and then brought?
Right.
It's a little bit weird. What we know is that she is in debt. Her campaign is in debt. She was actually forced to ask more money, even if her campaign has failed. She's still asking more money because she has spent over $1 billion donating money to her VIP friends like Oprah Winfrey, Beyonce, Lady Gaga. I mean, it's like these people have demonstrated, though, all these people which I've nominated, and they were protagonists of the book I wrote about, the Sabbatean Frankist, Hollywood, and all the satanic connections. They have demonstrated that they are so detached from the majority of America, especially rural America, that they are not relevant any longer. Now, here in California, 40% in an unprecedented move have voted for Donald J. Trump. Most of the counties have turned red, and though they still had the courage, I think yesterday or the other day, the day before, to announce a winner after they got some votes from I don't know where, the Democrats, of course. They stole probably one of the seats here in California. But having said that, because California is a pretty heavily rigged system on the side of the Democrats, we have here Newsom, the ultimate evil, and also Newsom, the possible candidate for a future democratic presidential race. I mean, he is somebody who everybody despises, so I don't know how that's going to work out for him. But we can say that California is turning again towards the Republican side of things. But it's not the Republican here, because you see, when we discuss a Republican, you saw the transition team yourself, Chantelle. There is former Democrats, people who had actually the leftist ideas that the left has left. The left has left. This could be, but it's true. I mean, we have RFK Jr., fighting, of course, the medical establishment, making America healthy again, because it's true, America is unhealthy, and it's unhealthy because of all the additives, of all the coloring, of all the stuff that is put in this food that maybe looks good, but it makes a lot of damages. And I mean, when you go around in supermarkets in America, especially in places like Walmart, and you see these people who are not capable to move anymore and are given this electric kind of mobile buggies that they use to go around the supermarket. I mean, I always felt sorry for them. And when Joe Biden, as a last move before he leaves his failed presidency, just a few days ago, says that now the national health should pay for Ozempic and for these cures that cost a lot of money, I think that the solution is another. I need to change our diet, not get fat and then get on meds. I mean, what kind of...
Of course, food is your medicine, you know, and that's the biggest thing that they're trying to deprive us of. I mean, if we just look since COVID, how the food prices have increased, it is absolutely shocking, and it's all over the world, right?
Well, so the food increase is due to another of the failures of the Biden-Harris administration, and that is, of course, the wars the ongoing rules
Yes.
that ruined a lot of activities during the pandemic and so on. But having
Yes.
said that, we know that Americans have reacted negatively to all this. And so, regardless of their propaganda about gender, about abortion, about all their silly issues, in the end, we have won. And that is now the trigger for a new mental health crisis here in America, because the voters of the other side have gone in a crisis. They're
Yes.
depressed. And what is
Yes.
the big pharma going to offer? More meds? Oh, you are
Exactly.
depressed. Yes, well, we
That's
have,
it.
you
That's
know,
the problem, Leo, because big pharma is a mafia on its own, right? And I mean, and I don't know if any of you guys in the chats listened to my interview with Jerry Marzinski. Well, if you haven't, I want to highly recommend that you do, because he's a mental health specialist, and he spent many years working in the psych wards with people who have schizophrenia. And of course, through a lot of research and blah, 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 long story short, it's really the meds do nothing because there's attachments on these people. So it has nothing to do with the meds. It really, they are, it's not voices in their heads. It's negative attachments that have attached to these people. So the mafia, the medical mafia, of course, is always looking. They're giving. I mean, anyone who's on some serious meds or has, and especially when it comes to mental health issues, right? How many times does the doctor try and change your prescription? I mean, the side effects are suicide on some of those things, right? So it's really, no one really knows what's going on. And as you say, Leo, it's got nothing to do with the medication. At the end of the day, people need to live in spiritual alignment. Okay. They need to sleep enough. They need to
but they
eat
also
properly.
need to eat healthy food, because we are
Exactly.
what we eat. I explained this
Exactly.
also in volume 9, especially in my Confessions, this book where I tackled the subject of eating insects and all this BS that is pushed from the left, this lab grown meat. Now, Elon Musk is the one who, of course, is helping out Trump in Silicon Valley, but the rest of Silicon Valley, what are they doing? Bill Gates and even Jeff Bezos are investing now millions in stopping the farts in cows. The cows are not going to be able to fart anymore. That's something that a little bit disturbing, because it's a natural thing. And so, what kind of meat are we going to get?
Of
It's a very
course.
shitty meat. So I think that, of course, people might regard some of the choices of Trump still with a little bit of caution, especially for Treasury, especially the connection with Soros. But we have to understand the actual choice that Trump has made of people like RFK Jr. and also Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard, as a director of national intelligence, is an unprecedented move, because the Hawaiian representative was also a Democrat, and this demonstrates how transversal this new cabinet of Trump is. Tulsi Gabbard was herself a victim of the national intelligence, and she was being investigated. So the fact that he's placing people, of course, a lot of people would like him to apologize for some of the aspects, especially of Operation Warp Speed. So, I understand that. I completely understand that. But let's not forget, Trump in his first presidency was a businessman who had to trust a lot of people in Washington, which he didn't really know. And he didn't really know how the whole thing worked. He trusted probably initially even Dr. Fauci, but he came to regret a lot of these choices that he was forced into making by both the big pharma and at times the military industrial complex. However, with the choices that he has made, he has delivered a clear message to both the big pharma and the military industrial complex. When we are talking about what is happening at the moment. With Vladimir Putin, only a few hours ago, gave a great speech in which he has talked about Donald J. Trump extensively for the first time since the election. I mean, he sporadically gave some answers, but this time he kind of focused on the whole thing. And he said Trump needs to be still very careful because, they will try probably to take him out again. And at the same time, he was shocked by the way that the system here in America had permitted the personal attacks on Trump's family, on Trump's friends. And he says, here in Russia, not even the bandits do that. You don't touch.
Exactly.
He did a bit of a macho move. He said, in Russia, kids and women are left out. It's between real men. I think this is the way forward. I mean, you have to understand that men need to be men, women need to be women. Of course, we can integrate things in a modern way, but rejecting the differences between these two sexes, and this was another winning point, of course, of the Trump campaign, the gender thing, the toilets for now, not any longer for men and women, but for some kind of mixed gender, and suddenly you find yourself as a woman next to a man in a toilet, you can get raped, all kinds of things can happen. And so I think that Putin gave a clear message also that Trump's family was in danger. But also Putin has been in Astana, in Kazakhstan, a very important location for the Eastern Illuminati, for those branches of Freemasonry that in some way are detaching from the British Anglo-Saxon control. We know that for years we have been talking about Astana as the potential location for a one-world religion, because they have this pyramid, the Palace of Peace and Reconciliation, where often numerous religious leaders have met. And it was said, and I wrote about it in volume 7 of my Confessions in this book, that if a meeting was finally made there between Kirill and the Pope, maybe it means that the whole thing, the whole one world religion will finally come together for them. Instead, we saw that Kirill was marginalized, was even accused of being a criminal and put on a blacklist by the European Union. The Patriarch of the Orthodox Church in Russia was basically made a wanted guy, which is unprecedented. And at the same time, we saw now that Putin, for the second time, went to Kazakhstan, a place which is very close to him. Of course, we're talking about a place that is part of a structure that was built after the fall of the Soviet Union that maybe not many people know about. You see, after the fall of the Soviet Union, in places like Kazakhstan, who were part of the Soviet Union, it started to arise a need to create some form of, if not part of the federation, a collective security organization. And so they created what is known as the CSTO, which is the Collective Security Treaty Organization, which is an intergovernmental military body, an alliance, a little bit like NATO, let's say, in Eurasia. And it consists of 6 post-Soviet states, Armenia, Belarus, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Russia, and Tajikistan. Now, it's very important this because in Tajikistan we had also the West with MI6 and CIA trying to infiltrate and foment these ISIS thugs, because that's what they are. They're mercenaries of this new world order, like I explained very well in volume 10 of my Confessions. So the Collective Security Organization met in Kazakhstan, and that was a very important message that he sent from the meeting, from this meeting in front of these security officials gathered there. He said that he, of course, had attacked Ukraine and in a dramatic way. We saw in the last couple of days the whole electric grid of Ukraine has been almost eradicated. So they're going to have a very cold winter with over 100 drones and 90 missiles. But that's because Putin is always reacting to what they do. So it's really ridiculous to hear Zelensky complaining and saying, oh, that's so bad. What a criminal. After you have just been sending long-range missiles and killing people and soldiers in one of their military bases the day before. So it's really hypocrite from Zelensky, of course, and from the West to expect a different response. All of this is happening because Joe Biden, who is no longer the president of the United States and never was, but in reality is Alex Soros and Barack Hussein Obama, have decided to lit the house on fire before leaving to make the things difficult for Donald Trump. In fact, a few hours ago, Putin acknowledged that. He said there might be this possibility. They are doing all this, trying to trigger basically World War III because they want to ruin the chance that Trump has. Now, I know that there is still people skeptic maybe out there about Trump, but I can tell you one thing about Trump, which I learned in the years since I've been supporting him, and it's 10 years now that I've been supporting Trump since the actual first run and bid to the presidency of the United States. I became, as you know, president of Italians for Trump when I was still in Italy. And I noticed one thing, that people like me in Europe were persecuted only because of our connection with Donald J. Trump. And so this means something. Now, the fact that now the European journalists today have announced that they are abandoning X because of the lack of freedom of speech is really ridiculous when there is no freedom of speech for journalists in Europe, when countries like Italy are number 47, like some African countries. Sorry, you live in Africa, but it's not really the best place for freedom of speech. And journalists are killed, they are blackmailed, and or they are forced into renouncing to investigate.
That's all over, Leo. I mean, all you got to do is look at what happens on YouTube, on our platforms here. I think it's all over. It's not just in certain areas.
I tell you one thing about
I think America, whoever's running YouTube and these Facebooks and stuff like that, there's no freedom of speech there. How many of us have lost our platforms? How many of us have lost our channels?
And I completely agree. But I tell you this.
I'm always in Facebook jail.
Let me tell you something that happened immediately after the election of Donald J. Trump. This happened to me, so I can tell you my own personal experience. YouTube contacted me, basically only a few days after the election of Trump. And suddenly they gave me back a channel they had taken away in October 2020, and they apologized. Second, after another week, they gave me another channel back because I got 17 channels eradicated. Now, my main channel that was 25, I got to recover a channel with around 9,000 subscribers, another with around 5,000 subscribers. I have also another channel which had originally over 20,000 subscribers. I went in there, they actually gave me access and they unblocked it, but they erased all the subscribers and the videos. So it was a little bit weird what happened with that channel. I maybe imagine why. There was some content which was very delicate in those videos. But in any case, the fact that YouTube has changed and that Mark Zuckerberg yesterday went to Mar-a-Lago and he has apologized, he has said sorry to Trump. These people are scared.
Why is it? I mean, isn't this crazy? Because half of the celebrities were threatening to leave America.
No, those are the idiots. Those are I'm talking about the real people, the people who own Google, who own Facebook. They know that if they don't apologize now, Doge and everything that Trump is creating with Elon Musk, Ramaswamy, and everything else is gonna go after them. They had to apologize. I know Mark Zuckerberg had to apologize because he himself kicked out Trump, he penalized all the Trump. I was blocked for months on end on Facebook only because I exposed over and over again Hunter Biden's laptop, his content with the recorded content with the head of Chinese intelligence and other things that were completely impossible to discuss because immediately they will come after you. So they know they have done wrong. The fact that Zuckerberg apologizes means he knows he has done wrong. And the same for YouTube and Google. So the things are changing here, Chantelle. This is not Europe. This is not South Africa where you still have dictatorships. This is a place where people have a great constitution that can change things around. Because the moment in which you have a new president, and that new president was himself the target of the worst smear campaign and censorship. After the 6th of January 2021, Chantelle, you couldn't even mention Trump on any of these platforms. You will be banned immediately. Trump videos were banned. Anything mentioning Trump was banned. That is so bad that it deserves an apology from these people. And maybe they will survive in that way. But then everything will have to be rediscussed. The rules and the censorship that they followed because of the Democrats in power demonstrate that these people were really evil. When we say Democrats, people have to understand the Democrats are simply an outpost of the Jesuits. Jesuit America is a publication here in America by the Jesuits, has supported AOC openly. Pope Francis supports the Democrats. Whoopi Goldberg goes and visits the Vatican. These people are all Vatican ass lickers. Sorry if I say this term a little bit rude.
All good.
Okay, but that is the so the Jesuits have now had their second Catholic president. You see, the first one was actually at the time, because when JFK was alive, there was a different setup. There was a neocon, let's say there was a conservative stand against the Soviet Union, against the communists. And so Kennedy was viewed as a little bit too progressive. And of course, we know how he ended up, him and his brother. They were not saints, both of them. And they had done things that were terribly wrong also. I think karmically speaking, RFK Jr. is capable now of maybe do something good in the name of this family that has been cursed for so long. So I see what's happening with Vladimir Putin. Of course, people today in the news will start saying that Putin has Trump's back, and of course you will have idiots like Hillary Clinton. You see, I told you, he's connected. He's actually a puppet in the hands of Putin. All this bullshit. I don't think anybody really believes in this crap anymore. They don't believe in what the media are pushing. And in fact, to tell you the truth, I'm very happy about the latest decisions for there will be a completely different press room in the White House, where people like me or people simply independent journalists or bloggers or podcasters will be invited to question either the president or a spokesperson. And it will not be only ABC, CBS, NBC, and all this rubbish, which, like I explained in Volume 8 of my confession, is very important, this book, because now people are really seeing the truth about Hollywood. It was the military-industrial complex that established things like NBC or CBS and the news. So the news goes hand in hand with the military-industrial complex and the big pharma. Now, the moment in which there has been two great events I explained in volume 11 of my confessions, and I told you about it before. 9/11 was the pandemic. It was for the big pharma like the pandemic. The military-industrial complex rejoiced after 9/11. It was the moment in which they went loose on the world, and it was the war on terror. The war on terror was a lot of money to these criminals. Now, we talk about inflation. You talked about inflation at the beginning of the show. You said everything is so expensive. You go in a shop and you spend double what you were spending only a few years ago. And people are, of course, suffering because when you have this kind of situation, you don't even know if you can afford a turkey for Thanksgiving. In fact, I saw even a show that talked about this woman went on TikTok to make these cheap recipes for people who couldn't afford a turkey to still be able to cook some kind of Thanksgiving meal. This is very sad. Okay, so I'm very thankful that I was capable of having a turkey on my table, like the one I showed you earlier on. And I'm thankful because people should be thankful on Thanksgiving. That's the whole point of Thanksgiving, is to be thankful. And I'm thankful still of being American because this Thanksgiving could have been the Thanksgiving if they stole the elections with Kamala Harris, because that's the only way they could have won. We will have probably had a civil war, and we will have probably had I will have to flee California. People would be fighting in the streets. Nowadays, respect to the first presidency, where you had a lot of Soros-driven mercenaries around the cities complaining, and then, of course, they all were let loose after the George Floyd episode. This is different. They can't seem to find these mercenaries because everybody watches them and says, what? They don't believe in the narrative of the mainstream media against Trump anymore, obviously, because we won. And at the same time, I mean, of course, Soros probably has tried to finance some people to do some protest, but nobody gives a damn. They're a bunch of losers. Yeah. So what do they do? Yeah. In the other day, I think the day before yesterday, in Wisconsin, a group of women goes in front of a lake and starts shouting, because this is the primal scream against Donald Trump. Oh, the suffering of the mind. Well, all these people can be locked up. They can take as many Prozacs as they want. They can make the big pharma big again, make big pharma great again. That's what they're going to make, because they're all depressed. They go to Italy. Sharon Stone went to Italy, and Sharon Stone and Alec Baldwin, in this demented festival in Turin, Baldwin, who is an assassin, who should be in jail, had the courage to say, oh, well, the Americans have made mistakes. And then Sharon Stone even said worse things. She said, oh, America is young, so we're going through a young moment. This 80% of the country doesn't leave America, and so doesn't understand the rest of the world. You in Italy had fascism. When she said that, I was about to break the screen of the TV, because I suffered from those facts. Sorry if I say, from those judiciary magistrate, corrupt Italian left-wing fascists, because they are Nazi communists. That's what they are in Italy. They use the laws of Benito Mussolini, and they are left-wing judges. Like Elon Musk said that they should be kicked out. All of them should be kicked out. But I was a victim of that system in Italy because of what I wrote. And she's talking about, you have known fascism. I was like, she doesn't know what the hell she's talking about. Yeah. How dare she? And let me tell you about that 80% of America that doesn't go outside of America. Okay? Because I was brought up by a grandmother who used to live in New York. I used to be kind of a worldly guy because I had families all over the world. So I went around, I told you, my great-grandmother was living in South Africa. We had a big ranch there in South Africa, farm, whatever you call it. So, I mean, we were pretty worldly people. But I always had this thing, Americans, they don't travel abroad, so they're not open-minded. I was grown up in that kind of context where people were saying those kind of things. But when I went the first time in America, I started to see a different situation. It was first time under Ronald Reagan in the beginning, early 80s. And I saw this patriotism at the time when they show in the cinema, the movies, people stand up at the flag, the thing. And I found this very incredible. And then when my wife came to live in Italy with me for 10 years. And we were subject to persecution, police breaking through the door, interrogations with the light, not only to me, but also to my wife. Things that she was actually arrested one day when we were going to France. We stopped in an hotel, and because they didn't renew her visa, the police came while she was doing the shower. They pulled her out of the shower and they put her in a police car. Now,
What?
this is what I've been subject to. And so for these idiots to want to go to Europe, well, you're welcome. Why don't you just move to fascist Europe altogether? And you can, because they're so like-minded, they're so, they can, they can all go there. Richard Gere can go to Spain. Ellen DeGeneres can go to England. They can all leave this country in flocks. We don't care.
Tom Hanks can go to Greece.
They're not relevant. They're not relevant, and they never will be relevant again. Robert De Niro, they're not relevant. And people like De Niro pretending to be a mafiosi. Let me tell Robert De Niro one thing about being a mafiosi. The mafia was mafia when they were against communism. When they started dealing with drugs, they became Democrats. And that's when Frank Sinatra told them to fuck off. So that is the situation when it comes to the mafia. The mafia has become a leftist. The guys even made a deal in the early 90s, the Italian mafia, with the Russian KGB, former KGB, the Russian mafia, to make deals across Europe. Of course, I despise certain things, and I despise hypocrisy, especially from people like Robert De Niro, who shouldn't be opening his mouth. But it's just like Arnold Schwarzenegger, who goes and says, "Oh, I had a Nazi father, so yeah, I was born in California, I understand." No. Schwarzenegger is just as a Nazi as his father, because these people are the real Nazis.
Yeah.
The way they behave, the way they threaten people. You couldn't even wear a hat, a MAGA hat, or a T-shirt, and you would be not only viewed in a negative way around here, but they will attack you at times. Yes. They will come close to you and say, "Oh, why you support her?" And they probably still do. They will still do that in some parts of California. But now things are different, because the workers here, the Mexicans outside my door who are working the lawn here, the staff, those people I saw wearing MAGA hats. Those people are hard workers, not these idiots, leftist, privileged, elitarians, assholes. So I'm very glad that Trump has made his way this time with the Latino X, however you want to call them, population, with the African Americans, who they gave for granted in their plantation ghettos. And it's sad that we still have this president, because unfortunately the roots of this whole transition is that you still have Joe Biden capable of igniting Third World War, and this is insane. But fortunately,
do you think that's possible? Sorry, Leah.
Yes.
Do you think it's possible that he actually would do that? We know Joe Biden's a puppet for whoever. But do you think that they could still do that before Trump is inaugurated?
He can do a lot of damage still. He can do a lot of damage. But fortunately, like I said, there is a direct contact between Putin and Trump that might prevent the use of nuclear. However, Putin himself from Kazakhstan has said, "I have hypersonic missiles and I don't need to use the nuclear, because those kind of hypersonic missiles can generate enough heat like the sun, the surface of the sun." So he can basically, he has threatened Kiev and Ukraine, saying, I can melt your city, not with nukes, simply with the new weapons I have. And
Wow.
that is something that, of course, NATO knows it's unstoppable, because under both the Obama administration, the Joe Biden administration, there was some developments during the Trump administration. Unfortunately, the investments in the military industrial complex have gone in their own direction. And so we don't really have hypersonic missiles like China or Russia. And most of the technology that Russia is using for those hypersonic missiles will not be possible without the support of China. So this has to be also very clear. At the same time, some persons here on the chat says, well, if Kamala will have won, the other side will have melted. No. One thing you have to understand about America, and my friend, maybe they're not American, maybe they don't understand. I have gone across the whole country for years, and so I know America. I know not the America of New York or the America of LA, which is not America. I know the America of the rural, the desert, the places where nobody goes, the places which have that have the Trump flags all over, the places that really are made of real Americans who have suffered a lot because of the choices that have been made by these people, by the swamp creatures in Washington. So I think that the reaction from the other side, if it was a fair win, will have simply be, well, we have tried. Now you can destroy the country, and that's it. You know, because this was like, I mean, on Trump's side, he was risking everything. If he lost, he would have been arrested, he would have been persecuted, and all his patrimony, every estate he had, would have been lost. I mean, here you're talking about a guy who suffered at least 2 attempted assassinations. And on top of that, he had to spend, he did over 900 rallies in the last 4 years, 900. And the spare time that usually you have to relax with your family and friends, he had to spend in a court in front of ugly communist judges. And I know how it is, because they wanted to entrench me in court cases like that in Italy. And I had to flee the country to avoid the persecution of my family, and at the same time losing everything, and also doing my job. If a lot of people say, but Leo, you are a coward, you should have stayed in Italy. When they came after because the judiciary was coming after me, but the mafia, the 'ndrangheta, was threatening my family. And when I asked help to the police, I said, listen, these mobsters that are threatening me here. Oh, we can't, we need to have some, we can't give you any help. Even police inspectors, head chief, they told me that.
Yeah.
So at that point, what? Should I risk my life for who? For what?
Yeah.
For a constitution which it's not like the American Constitution. It's a constitution that doesn't guarantee you any freedom, that is overtaken by the European Parliament and European Constitution, which is another hellhole of technocrats. People like Ursula von der Leyen want to continue this war. Great Britain wants to continue this war. Well, now they can. They can blow up Europe, and we will be America first. As long as you do the war on the other side of the pond, you can blow up the whole continent. I don't care. I'm sorry that I might sound like an asshole, but you are idiots for letting this happen, because you don't overcome problems like the Americans have done in 1776. It was done with a bath of blood. And you need, when I was in Italy in 2013-14, and I was trying to explain to people that they had to rebel, and they went after me really hard because of the pitchfork insurrection, what happened, we paralyzed Italy, and the unions initially were on our side before being corrupted. Well, I had a direct political experience that showed me that the Europeans don't have weapons, but most of all, I'm sorry to say, they don't have balls To fight a system, you need to fight. And fight means that at times, well, you have to sacrifice. And I sacrificed a lot when I moved here, to tell you the truth, because I live in a little small apartment. I was living in a big villa. I had a nice car, I had everything. And me and my wife had to flee a country because of persecution in the year 2019 in a continent that calls itself democratic and freedom of speech is guaranteed. No, it's not guaranteed. And so, having suffered myself on the persecution, knowing exactly what these people are capable of, the judiciary needs to be reformed, just like the education system. And so it's a great opportunity here in America now to have, of course, initially it was Matt Gaetz who was nominated, but now we will have Pam Bondi, to do something different, to reform the DOJ, to reform the FBI, to reform also the CIA, to reform the intelligence through Tulsi Gabbard, the whole intelligence agencies. We have many intelligence agencies that are unfortunately still with that diversity, equity, and inclusion mentality, like I explained in volume 11. And some people say the Scottish people have boats. My friend, I am a Scottish Lion family member. And if I say they don't have boats, they don't have boats because if you think that the Scottish government at the moment has boats, then you are completely eluding yourself. If I
she's saying that the government
Scotland now, and I have friends of mine living in Scotland now, and I start talking like this in Scotland, I have Scotland Yard or which is like the FBI in Great Britain, at my door after 10 minutes for a Facebook post. There is no freedom in the United Kingdom now, at the moment, in the whole of the United Kingdom. I'm not talking only about Scotland.
Leo, if we think about it, the whole world, every country is under some kind of a
grip. But there is people here in the chat that say, oh, the people are right, the government is wrong. And I can't hear that kind of thing. Because in a place like America, if the government continued to do crookery, people will have raised with weapons and we will have had a civil war. Do the same in Scotland, do the same wherever in Europe, and then you can talk to me in the same way. You need to raise with weapons against if the governments are made of thugs, of criminals, of people who oppress the population, you need to do a revolution. That's it. There's no other solution. And if you don't do it, shut up. That's it.
And I think that's really what we need to do. I think because if we look at it, there's the 1% that really controls the 99%. And I mean, but it's been done, we know, and we often discussed, and anyone on this channel who's listening to all the shows will know that we have been dumbed down. We have been abused and farmed and blah, blah, blah. But it is time, that we do stand up. And we do stand up for ourselves, and that we do say no.
Rightly saying, Scotland, because people are talking about Scotland, let me tell people just so they have I'm a descendant of Robert the Bruce. I'm a Lion family member. My grandfather was the cousin of the Queen Mother, Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon. Without Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon, the present royal family would be more German than German. So, first of all, respect, because I come from a castle, which is still a castle in Scotland. We have a castle in Scotland and everything. The Lyon family is an important clan in Scotland. So and I have not only the Lyon family, my mother, and from my grandmother's side, also another side of the family, who is also the Cummings, also came from Scotland. So when you talk about Scotland, you talk about an important place. Donald J. Trump comes from Scotland. But I can tell you one thing. If the Scottish people continue to have those hideous politicians they themselves are electing and they don't rebel, well, forget the Braveheart. You don't have any Braveheart. You don't have no balls. And I say the same things to the Italians. I say the same things to the French. I say the same things to the Germans. The people don't rise to their oppressor. well, they deserve to perish. I'm sorry. That's how it is. Because I have risked a lot. I have done prison. I have been persecuted. I have been tortured in Europe, not in America.
There's actually a comment here by Supplanter, I think. I'm trying to find it here again, but sure, when I start, yeah, I like this one. I think it's the 98% who want to be ruled, governed,
Yes.
enslaved by the 1%. And I'm going to say that's so true, actually, on so many levels. You know, most of us walk around ignorant, and we kind of have really lost what we need to be keeping or gaining, right? And yeah, so most people like to be controlled. A lot of people.
What are people able to give up for true freedom? That is the question.
People think they are free, though, Leo. That's the problem. My point is that if you look at the world, we've been enslaved to, and we've allowed ourselves to be enslaved to such a degree, we don't even realize we're not fucking free. Look at what happened during the pandemic. How many people ran and queued for that jab in the arm because they thought they were buying their freedom, or they thought they were having freedom injected into their arm because now they could travel again. Now they could hug their children again. Who on earth even thinks that that is freedom? That was the biggest, I'm telling you, psyop ever, because I think the 1% then saw just how gullible the majority, and just how well the mind control, the subtle mind control, has actually worked. And that's how they get us every time. And we give our power away.
I mean, I have to agree, because I wrote a whole book about that, the mind control. This is the past, present, and future of mind control. And as you know, I've covered the whole thing of how populations get completely controlled. And actually, regarding NATO, this is the first book that discusses, as you know, cognitive warfare, which is this new technology they have devised to control the minds of the 2 billion people who live under NATO countries. I'm talking about cognitive warfare, meaning a mix of psychological operations, the good old psyops, as everybody knows them, and the new technology that is given by data centers, social networks, and the internet, that helps, of course, identifying who they can address this cognitive warfare to. There is a command center in Norfolk, Virginia, and in this book, I discuss this, and I'm the first one to actually discuss it, because the strange thing is that nobody wants to discuss it. The other day, I was on Italian national radio, and I started to discuss cognitive warfare and the command center, and François de Clausel, this officer, and immediately they censored me. They took it off. So it means they're scared. They don't want you to know that NATO was pushing for Kamala, of course, and Joe Biden, because their interest is to continue this hideous war against Russia and to actually make it even worse. Because that's a military industrial complex. They strive on war. So
yeah, the chaos. They want to create chaos. War is chaos. And I mean, if we just think about that again, we've got to think, and we know this, we've discussed this before many times on the show. It's spiritual before physical, right? So they've got to create that spiritual chaos where war, how more terrible than watching people being blown up in front of you? You know, for the guys that come back from war, I mean, the PTSD is huge. The trauma is massive. And if we think about how our society really is today, we're all just products. We are all just children of products of the war, right? Our parents, our grandparents, World War I and World War II. So are we surprised humanity is really as screwed up as what we are on so many levels? Because we've had one trauma after the other. One war after the other, one pandemic after the other,
there is one thing here that
disease.
I noticed something, though, Chantelle. in this, alternative media that we represent, because we are, like I said earlier, the alternative media of today. Shows like yours, mine, people like to actually inform themselves through the alternative media. So as alternative media, I want to say something here, that we are viewing at the moment from the people who follow our shows at times a skepticism, especially I notice from people outside of America, maybe mostly, but also even from Americans at times, skepticism towards the fact that maybe Trump can really change things. I'm not saying that Trump is a saint. When I came to support them 10 years ago in this new project, political project, I supported him because I was actually having a dinner with somebody a lot of people know in America, Alex Jones. We were in Rome and we were discussing supporting or not this guy. He's a billionaire. What does it mean to support Donald Trump? Well, I said, the thing is, you can buy Obama. You can give him a 70 million book deal or Netflix deal. You can buy him. You can buy Joe Biden very easily. He's totally bought him, his family. These are people you can buy because they are career politicians. And unfortunately, that's the weak spot of democracy, career politicians. When you have people like Elon Musk or Ramaswamy, who are businessmen, who don't need politics to make money, it's a different kind of situation. And you have to admit that. Now, you can be as skeptical as you want. And I agree that Trump has done some mistake in his first presidency. And I explain you also why. Because the big pharma and the military industrial complex, unfortunately, knew exactly how to manipulate things. And the swamp actually won and Trump lost. And I will say that the 6th of January, as I explained also in volume 7, was a trap. Was a trap issued by Nancy Pelosi, the FBI, and in fact, the famous QAnon shaman. Now you remember the guy with the horns in Capitol Hill. He actually went on TV here in America on the election show and said, "I actually read Leo Zagami's books, and I agree with what he said about what happened that day." And this was the figure that we most commonly associate with the Capitol Hill tragedy or trap of the 6th of January 2021. But having said that, we need to give a choice to someone before we can criticize him. There is no other, he's not going to do, we are all screwed. That is not the way things work in this planet. If you want to change things, then you have to do things. Yeah. So instead of being we call them in Italy leoni da tastiera, which means lions of the keyboards, that sit here with nicknames and start theories upon theories and say things. I put my face, my name, my surname. I had to flee a country because of the persecution. I was tortured by police and secret service in Italy, in Norway, by the PST. I suffered real things. I haven't seen my son from the year 2008 till now. And I'll probably never see him again because he's been, as you know, I told you, and I discussed in volume 10, his adoptive father is now a member of the World Economic Forum of Klaus Schwab. So I probably will never see him again in my life. I have made sacrifice. Are you willing to sacrifice your own children? Are you ready to sacrifice your life for a cause? Wake up, cats.
Yeah, it's time for that, And I must say, well, firstly, I'm really sorry, and also just to hear about what you're saying about your son. It's always really sad, very sad. But it's true what you said, Leo. I always say these are super exciting times we're living in, but we can either turn it into realizing that this is the time where everything is changing. No one is coming to save us. We have to save ourselves. We have to get up off our backsides, walk the talk, not talk the talk or be the keyboard cowards, as I call them, and be the gang stalkers and harass it. I mean, I know, and I'm not someone like yourself who's had obviously been a trailblazer in terms of whistleblowing on these guys. That's super dangerous. But for sure, I get my fair share of what have you that goes on, not just people on the channel, but just spiritually, the psychic attacks and things that many of us go through when we're on these channels. But, it's amazing. There are, with our viewers as well, I think the world is waking up. I always say, when I look at from when I began 4 years ago to where I am now, listen, I was waking up myself. I always thought I was awake, but there was no ways that I knew. I mean, I even began to be awake until I started working on these platforms and interviewing people and getting to understand. I mean, it's like this flood of swamp just came into my existence, and trying to figure out, how do we get through this? And it's true what you say. Each and every one of us has a purpose and a mission at this time to actually do something, to make a difference in some way or the other. That's the only way we're going to get through this. Yes, through prayer. Prayer, of course, is the first step. It's the first step. And then the second step is acting, because when you pray, right, you get, let's call it inspiration. God inspires you to act in a certain way.
I think if we are in a situation where we are heading towards a third world war, it's because of a spiritual war that is also fought prior to that. And so the prayer is definitely a great help.
It's the first thing. So, prayer is faith. And faith is knowing, not asking God, because if you still got to ask God to protect you, it means you haven't understood that you already are protected. So it's having the faith to know that you are protected during these times. And when you know you have walking with the armor of God, so to speak, you are protected. Then you don't have to worry about asking for protection, because you are protected. And that's the key. That faith then becomes your action. So you act in faith, you live in faith, you walk in faith, you deal with issues in faith. And this is exactly what it is. It's faith, it's love, it's community, it's growing your own food, it's feeding yourself well, it's making sure that this body that is you is a strong, healthy conduit for God to work through. That's how we become soldiers for God. Not, I don't know, people have such weird ideas, in my opinion, Leo. Really, they do. And it's really about understanding that we are conduits for God. And if our energy system or our mind or our emotions or our thoughts or our bodies blocked with so much crap, so much monkey-mindedness, so much pain and suffering in your emotions, so much junk food you're eating cardboard food. And that's what we're saying, like the food that is not of quality. So take responsibility for your health. Take responsibility for feeding yourself and your family.
That's what the Republicans are saying now. I mean, Joe Biden is basically justifying millions of obese people who eat junk by giving them Ozempic for free. I mean, and we have to pay for it, because at the end it's we who have to pay for it through our taxes. And that's going to be billions on our tax system. So, I mean, why? Because you don't want to have a healthy diet? Because you don't want to eat proper food? Of course, RFK Jr. will have to now, and is already doing that, instigating fear on an industry that for many years has made their own brand, for example, of a specific cereal sold here in America that has 20 more damaging ingredients than you find, for example, in nearby Canada. And why? Right. Why those 20 ingredients? So you can poison our children? The problem now, though, is becoming a military problem. And I tell you why. Because now when you go and search for recruits, they have all kinds of sickness. They have problems, health issues that our fathers or grandfathers didn't have. So they can't recruit any more soldiers into the US Army because they're not healthy, because they have all kinds of problems and issues with their health that they didn't have before. And this is due to the kind of diet that we have in this country. So that needs to be changed. The diet is very important. And I repeat, we are what we eat. And so instead of spending billions to promote eating insects or lab-grown meat, you should promote eating healthy food to those people who are clearly obese. And, you can't live on fried chicken. I love fried chicken. But you can't live on fried chicken. If I have fried chicken once or twice or 3 times a year, for me is a lot. But I enjoy it very much in those 3 times. But, you can't live every day on fried chicken, on food which is basically garbage, which has no nutritional value, on GMO food. Because the problem that, when I came to America, even when I started to come back to America in my adulthood, the first thing I noticed was all this GMO here, GMO, genetically modified food everywhere. In Europe, we have GMO is prohibited. And a lot of the problems that we have here is about this. I mean, in my first Thanksgiving here in the US, me and my wife were still trying to adapt to the American. Even if she's American, she never lived here in California, finding the right shops, the right supermarkets to shop. So we just went to Walmart. We just got a turkey there. We just got the things that we ended up really sick. And so being sick made us understand that we were not eating the right thing. Nowadays, the turkey has to be from a farm. The food I have on my plate is all 100% organic. And it's not because I'm fixated, but it's because it's the only way in a country which has genetically modified food, which, cross the something from a fish inside the corn and puts it in, and you have all kinds of weird stuff that is mixed into it. That stuff makes me sick. And then you have fruit, high fructose, you have all kinds of sugars that are completely useless and shouldn't be there. So it's about healthiness, because we are, I repeat, what you eat.
Uncaged savage, no spam, no canned spam. No.
No, I mean, I understand. Okay, I understand that in times of war, you will eat anything. Now, I come from a family which has stories, especially my family in Sicily. They told me story during the war. They had to eat rats and stuff because they didn't have food. They didn't have salt. They didn't have things that were, basic necessities. There was the war. And so I had to hear these stories from my grandparents and stuff of the sacrifices and things. So I think that I understood that, having food on our table is already a privilege. And at times we can't choose, because those many people who buy all that food, which unfortunately RFK Jr. will have to now purge from the American menu, are people who don't know better. I mean, when I go here, I'm talking about just going 500 meters from 300 meters from where I'm talking now. I go to 200 meters. I just go to put petrol at the station. And then, I go and pay, because you pay at the counter. And they have a bunch of fried chicken, a bunch of fried stuff. And you have queues of people buying this garbage. When I'm watching them, they don't look healthy. And so they need to be reminded that that food is garbage, that food can be eaten as, once in a blue moon if you want to just have, but you can't live on that kind of stuff. And it's important to remind, especially my fellow Americans, that we need to eat healthy. So I hope that RFK Jr. can really make the difference.
Food is your medicine, for sure. And I'm also seeing a lot of comments in the chat here about farmers markets. And I know farmers markets are becoming a big thing nowadays. I mean, over
Yes,
here
yes,
as well.
absolutely. And they're very good.
That's
It's a good
great.
way.
But you know, there's always way. You know, I don't know what you guys call it here. We call it Ubuntu or barter.
And
When
regarding
you
the
barter,
food, you have the Zagami family cookbook, authentic Italian cooking. Remember, this is a
is
family
it
cookbook.
available yet?
And you have all healthy dishes with colored photos.
Okay. What is the name of the book?
The Zagami Family Cookbook, authentic Italian cooking, and the author is my wife. It's a great book. You also
Is it on Amazon?
on Amazon. You can find it on Amazon, and you have also how to make fresh pasta, how to make fresh pizza, and basically this is all Italian cooking and recipes. My wife lived for 10 years in Italy with me, so she could learn the basics of this cooking, and now she makes fresh pasta, she makes all the kind of things. And I mean, I really don't feel the necessity, to tell you the truth, to go to a restaurant, because why should we go to a restaurant when we go to a restaurant and basically they're poisoning us? They're giving us cheap ingredients.
Yes.
They're giving us all things that are genetically modified and stuff. And so why should I go to a restaurant paying more to have less? It doesn't make any
Exactly.
sense. So that's why I encourage people to get a book so they can actually transform their own home in a restaurant.
I fully agree with that because I think, I mean,
somebody's asking.
I like to go out more for the social thing. I like to maybe go out for a dinner or a lunch to meet a friend, more like a social thing. But I must say, I much prefer cooking myself. I enjoy cooking, entertaining at my house, having friends over for dinner, making a nice Italian and Indian are my favorite foods. So yes, I make a very good pastelio.
I have
You'd
put
be
the
impressed.
link to the book in the
For
private
what?
chat, because for some reason I couldn't put it
Okay.
in the public one. So you can put it then in the public chat for people who have asked the link. So,
okay, let me just do that quick.
Yes. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, because I had so many compliments for this book. There is also a couple of my own recipes in it. And I tell you, there's very far out ones. There is an Illuminati pasta. I coined it the Illuminati pasta also in it. So Leo's Illuminati pasta.
What's in there? What's in there, Cam?
Oh,
Tell us, what's in the Illuminati pasta?
Tuna, roasted peppers, anchovies, fillets. It's interesting. It's an interesting dish, I tell you. It's a very good sauce. So that's just one of the many recipes. But there is, of course, prawns with pistachios and stuff. All kinds of cacio and pepe, which is a classic of the Roman cuisine. Cacio means basically cheese. In Roman, is pecorino romano, is this cheese made by the sheep. The shepherds used to make this cheese, and then they mix it with black pepper, and they make this amazing pasta, which has two simple ingredients, but very basic, but very nice. And aside from the pastas, like I said, there is pizzas. There is also other things that you can make that are in this polenta, which is another very interesting Italian thing with sausages and stuff. There's also some vegetarian recipes if you are interested. There's also some recipes from the Italian American cuisine, like chicken marsala. Because you see, when the Italians came to America initially, over 150 years ago, the first Italian came to America, they couldn't really find certain ingredients. So they adapted. And then they build up in parallel, especially in places with a big Italian American population that was growing, like New York or Chicago, their own recipes. And so there is also part of this book, which has some Italian American dishes, because they are interesting, they're nice, even for us Italians, because it's a mix between America and Italy, kind of.
Yeah, that's so cool. And I love cooking and I love Italian, and I'm definitely going to go check that one out for sure.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, you can get a Kindle and then you can have it, and it's easy when
Is,
you have
is,
a
is there one on Kindle too?
Yes,
I'll
absolutely.
I'll definitely go find it on
Kindle,
Kindle.
You can go on the phone while you're cooking and you go there and scroll down,
Okay, you know what?
You don't pour your phone inside the water for the pasta, otherwise the phone is going
to. I was going to say the next show we should all make a Leo pasta. I want the Illuminati pasta, but for me it's nighttime here already, so I'll be munching away my pasta.
It's a little bit early today, the roof. I'm still in the breakfast mode, but it's
exactly.
We can discuss it.
I'm in dinner mode now. In fact, you made me really hungry. There's a guy here, speaking of which, oh wow, Italian, proper Italian boy as well. And he's got a vegan, he's completely vegan, and he does vegan pasta, his pizzas. I take all my meat eating friends and family to the restaurant. They are blown away. They ask to go back. Just Italian. Really, really good.
Vegetarian cuisine, let's say, if one wants, there is ways of going fully vegan or vegetarian without any problems. There is a lot of good substitutes, and you can definitely, the basics of the Mediterranean, but the Italian cuisine in particular is the olive oil, So olive oil it can be used by vegans or vegetarians, no problem. But that is the basic. Then on top of that, you build everything else. And of course, the tomatoes are also part of it, which are very important. And the vegans love tomatoes. So, between the flour, then, of course. So, when you are cooking meat, I think I'm always for a moderate consumption of things, even when it comes to meat. So I always suggest that people have a moderate consumption of meat. That is also possible, when you are eating, your diet is only meat, well, then you might have some serious health issues. So you need to do everything in moderation.
Exactly.
I like, for example, with my meal, a glass of wine, but I don't necessarily like a bottle of wine, because that's what I say to people. There is at times a difficulty in adapting to the Italian mentality, because in the Anglo-Saxon world, drinking is to get drunk. And so you tend to put the drink in front of the food. So when they go to the Italian restaurant, it's more about ordering the wines than the food. But in Italy is about the food. And so the wine, a good glass of wine, can be the drunk in moderation, and people then feel they will be actually healthy, because one glass of wine a day might actually be healthy.
Yeah, apparently red wine, to have a glass of red wine is apparently good. I don't know.
Yes, absolutely. My father always used to have one. He always enjoyed the glass. It was a fixture,
Well, apparently your next calling, Leo Zagami, is to have a cooking channel with Christine.
Well, I will have to have a cooking channel, but I'll tell you one thing. One of the limits that we try our best here. We have, unfortunately, here in California, we are incentivized to use electric ovens, and I find it, for me, a limitation, because I would like to use gas ovens, and because with fire you have a different taste, but also you have a different way of cooking. So you make it more, and all these professional chefs, when they are in their kitchens, you see them, with all this fire. But here, for example, where I live, I can't have a gas oven, so that's a bit of a restriction. But of course, it would be a great thing to have a cookery show, but I don't know. There is so many more competent and more professional people who do this kind of thing already. So
no, but none of them are Leo Zagami. And we're having a DJ night with you. A Frankie Goes to Hollywood relax party with Leo Zagami.
absolutely.
That's
But
all
in the
coming up.
meantime, we have the opportunity now that we're going, of course, into the festive season, to meet up with our friends and relatives and cook great meals. Now that is a great opportunity, and I hated all this negative propaganda that is pushed from the left here in America. They are actually saying, don't invite your relatives who have voted for Trump. Don't mix with them. Don't talk with them. You shouldn't. I mean, this is so stupid. I mean, it's like, not only they're sour losers, but actually to put politics inside a family, to push people to divorce or to make drastic choices, like a mother not inviting the son because he has voted for Trump. I mean, I find this despicable. And unfortunately, it's becoming a reality here in America. I mean, to see it from the mainstream TV host, oh, yeah, you shouldn't really invite them. It might create friction. I need my safe space. Oh, whatever. These people are lunatics. And unfortunately, they will have to sooner or later, I think, accept the fact that they are a minority. I mean, all those issues that the left gave so much importance to regarding the last presidential run are issues that are labeled for a minority. I mean, who cares about the gender of this or that, or there is all kinds of issues that are not really issues, and that's why they didn't really they were not able to get elected, because the real issues, the ones that touch everyday people, are the issues that were brought forward by Trump and his future administration, by the people in his future administration. We talked today about the Trump transition team, so I would like to spend another couple of words on this Trump transition team before we end up the show. Now, one of the first choices that was done was to choose somebody I have known for a while now. He has asked my friendship on Facebook a few years ago, so we kind of became friends. It's Tom Homan. Now, Tom Homan is described like this Nazi who is gonna deport. I mean, Tom Homan is gonna become the border czar. The guy is actually gonna help America, because every day we have children getting killed passing illegally in the desert, or children given for child trafficking all over the United States. And that needs to stop.
Right.
And so when Tom Homan at the interview said, oh, but what will you do with family gets divided? And he said, well, we deport the whole family. Of course you deport the whole family. You can't deport a child. You have to deport the whole family. And I'm sorry to say, but I came into this country legally. I sacrificed years and years. I had to go through a bunch of excruciating bureaucratic procedures. And because we know each other for a while, I had to go through all this procedure and stuff. In 2020, November 2020, I was lucky enough to be granted a green card. I didn't know that I would be granted a green card. I thanked, of course, the Trump administration for putting me, also the Republican Party for putting me in contact with the lawyers that helped my process. But I didn't have any certainties when I came here to the United States, because even if you're married with an American citizen, if you want to do it legally, they have so many requests today that you have to fulfill. It's not like 15 or 20 or 25 years ago, where you were automatically granted a citizenship because you are married with an American citizen. It doesn't work like that anymore. So I didn't know. I had to go through, I had to show how much money I was earning, how much in prospecting I would make, how this and that. And I was lucky enough also in November 2020 to be the last one to take the green card without having to do the vax, the COVID bullshit jab. So, I mean, I was lucky. And I thank God that I didn't have to do it, because I would never have done it. So we are today here in America thanks to sacrifices that people like me who have gone through the legal way of naturalization know very well. So to see millions of people, at least 11 million, passing through, get given everything from the Democrats, so then they can have these people voting for them for the rest of their lives. Well, I'm sorry. I am, and this is not going to be, a lot of people probably on your side will be like, oh, squeamish. I am for mass deportation now, and that's it. And I don't want to hear any rubbish from any of you, because I suffered on myself what it means to become an American citizen legally. And you should do it legally. Otherwise, 2 hours from, 1 hour and a half from here, actually 1 hour and a quarter, there is the entrance of Mexicali. You can go back from where you came from. Sorry, Chantelle, you got to be, when you did so many sacrifices and you see people coming in here illegally and getting help left, right, and center, well, I had to spend so much money in sacrifices with my wife. It's not fair.
No, I agree. Unfortunately, everyone has to do what they have to do. It's a crazy time in the world right now, and I understand people are panicking, but every country has the responsibility to protect its citizens, and that's what has to be looked at first, really. I agree with you there.
Well, I mean, I know that there is people who leave their countries because they have been persecuted maybe in their countries. They have problems in their country. But most of the people who came here in the last few years came here, they are economic migrants. I came here because I was actually persecuted politically, tortured, things like this. Sure. This is the building foundation of America. America was built by people like me who were escaping. Even the Italians who came here in the 1920s or earlier, they came here because Italy was a country that, of course, there was a lot of problems. And also in other European countries, there were a lot of problems. And that's why they arrived here with a beacon of hope representing that is represented by the Statue of Liberty. And I had a lot of relatives, even myself from Sicily, who over 100 years ago came here in search of something. And they found great success. And through hard work, they established themselves now in America. And I'm actually very much admirer of that part of my family which has done that, because they went through a lot of sacrifices to have left Italy with no security and arriving here to establish themselves. So for me to see this illegal migration, it's really in the last few years during the Biden-Harris administration, and Kamala was nominated border czar. So my friend Tom Homan is taking the place which was given originally to Kamala Harris. And she has done nothing, absolutely nothing to stop this invasion. And this invasion also is about fentanyl. So when Trump is talking about 25% tariff and everybody's saying, oh, my pickup truck is going to cost more. Oh, my product at Walmart is going to cost more, or my product here is going to cost more. Well, that's okay, because you are saving the life of your children, of the people who nowadays through fentanyl die. I had my neighbor downstairs 2 years ago. I had to call the police because the guy basically was starting to smell, and there was the food from the Saturday. He had ordered Chinese, was still at the door, and his dog was barking, and they had to break through the glass, whatever. They entered, and the police found his body on his bed. And this was my neighbor who died of fentanyl. So stop your bullshit ideas. We need to stop this. Cartels in Mexico, they are criminals. They need to be wiped off the face of the earth. And whoever says the contrary, including that communist of the Mexican president, the woman communist president they have over there, well, Mexico is run by drug cartels at the moment. So we need to do a wage war against them. And it's, when you have a lawless, you are bordering with a lawless country, you can't do anything else. And I mean, people are dying. I had another friend of mine also who came to me 2 years ago, and he said, this guy, he did a stupid thing. He went to a party in Las Vegas, he did some cocaine, and there was fentanyl. And he was dying. 2 weeks. Him and his wife were dying. Fortunately, he managed to save his life. Of course, that made him also fortunately stop, maybe, I hope, doing what he was doing, because it's stupid to do drugs anyway. But with fentanyl, he was actually dying. So the people who say Trump's tariffs as a retortion against China and Mexico because of fentanyl is, it's exaggerated, and all the media, Trump's tariff. You pay more, I will pay 25% more if I know that fentanyl is not coming through anymore through the border. And regarding Canada is a criminal country. Apart from the fact I explained in volume 11, this country is mentally deranged because it's mentally brainwashed. I mean, they did MK Ultra in Canada. They did cognitive warfare on Canada during the pandemic, confirmed by their own armed forces. I have all the documents in this book that confirm it. And even the Ottawa citizen confirmed what I said, which is an important paper there. So the actual and Trudeau, what a scumbag. I mean, this guy is the worst scumbag in the history of scumbags. I don't know how it's possible this guy is still in power. The Canadians that fought against the system for a brief time, all those trackers and stuff, they all got punished, their bank accounts closed, they got persecuted, and at that point, they all silenced. And there is no more rebellion in Canada. There's no more revolution in Canada. There's no more talk of revolution in Canada. Well, if the Canadians wanted to be really independent, probably they would have joined 1776. Back in 1776, they would not have been like the other countries, part of the British Empire. But the British Empire is the root of all evil, and you know that by being South Africa.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Their Freemasonry, their system is the root of all evil. So that's why I'm saying Prince William is my candidate for the office of Antichrist. Prove me wrong in the next few years, because the guy is going to show his real colors soon.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, if we're just looking again at some symbolism that they use, as you said that now, it reminds me of when the first little one was born. I think Prince George. Catherine was wearing the same dress as what the woman was wearing in Rosemary's Baby. So it would not surprise me if he's the one that takes the crown. I don't know.
I hope that regardless of who's in charge in Great Britain, maybe Canada can have finally the courage to take away this idiot of Trudeau and put somebody a little bit more like-minded in affinity with the American patriots. But I have very little hope for them, because I remember one day there was my wife who was talking with a Canadian friend, and she was asking, imagine this question. Imagine this question really describes you what Canada is all about. She said to my wife, "What does it mean, patriot?"
Wow.
So Canada doesn't even know what it means to be a patriot. I'm sorry for them. I really am sorry for them. And I'm not mocking them in any way. I'm just saying, if you want, join the revolution. And that means with good in good days as well as bad. It's like when you get married, joining a revolution or joining an ideal is like getting married to that ideal. So you can't just marry that ideal when that ideal is successful.
Yeah, exactly.
You have to sacrifice. And
I agree.
I heard that there was, it's like somebody saying, there actually was a Rothschild who died in Hollywood in the last 24 hours, a member of the Rothschild family. So people are already inquiring if there is some kind of dark connection. I didn't know that the Rothschild could still live in that criminal area, because it's now becoming filled with criminality. So it's their own fault. I mean, the Rothschild family has been one of those families who has been so much involved with pushing this left-wing agenda, with the Frankfurt School, with wokeism, that I'm sorry, if one of them dies, I mean, it would be interesting to know how the whole thing happened, though. And I'm sure that we will probably know more soon about this mysterious death. In the meantime, here in California, we had Gavin Newsom and his wife giving the most demented Thanksgiving message. And the other day, Gavin Newsom was actually saying he was the governor of all Californians, and he was doing it from a car dealership, like he was a used car salesman in front of a car. I mean, what are you selling, cars, or are you actually doing politics? Gavin Newsom is the most ridiculous politician that we can ever have. But then you have people like the British Prime Minister, who are the most ridiculous politicians. I mean, these leftist politicians, like also Macron and also Scholz in Germany. I mean, who has put them there? Well, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, you,
Yeah,
citizens
exactly.
who go still and believe that they can change things in systems which are rigged, because those systems are completely rigged. So I end up today by saying simply that Trump is gonna now probably halt the sales and I mean, he's gonna halt all weapon shipments to Ukraine if Ukraine refuses to comply. In that case, they can do their own war with Great Britain, Germany, Europe. They can go to war all together, but they spend for it. We don't want to give our money for that. So, I mean, it's up to them. If they're happy with that, and if Europeans don't rebel to that, well, it's in any case very interesting to see what's going to happen in the next few months. And we really hope, and we have to pray for that, Chantelle, that this constant trying to sabotage Trump before Trump gets into his office by doing things like authorizing the long-range missiles and so on. Well, I hope that we can celebrate a big change on the 20th of January, because between the 20th and the 21st of January, we have a 6-planet alignment. A 6-planet alignment that is a very rare planet alignment that happens only once in a while. And this is very significant because in spiritual, occult, religious traditions, the planetary alignments, when you have 6 planets aligned, it has a meaning that can be also very changed, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. What are the planets, do you know, that are aligning?
I have a list of the planets. Now, I don't have them in front of me, unfortunately, but you can probably find, I actually even had found a video that showed the planets in alignment, a reconstruction, like a graphic imagery of it. But I found it very significant that Trump is coming into office with this planet alignment, because it might mean that we can overcome all the problems of the past. Now, regardless of the fact that things can happen, now I mean, it's tragic that a guy dies like this Rothschild. Apparently, he died in a house fire. We don't know if he was killed or if he died naturally. But regardless of these things that are happening, we have to understand that the life of many people is threatened every day now. All the Trump administration, the transition team is threatened. And it's threatened while they still don't have protection. Because you see, until they are nominated now, like Tulsi Gabbard, RFK Jr., or many others in this transition team, also the other names like Tom Homan. But they don't have their own security detail already, because when you are still a nominee and not confirmed, you don't have all the security around you. So you could end up with a bullet in your head. And all the threats that have been made to the Trump transition team in the last few days, now suddenly, because it didn't really look so good for the Democrats that all these people in the transition team were threatened, suddenly in the last few hours, oh, they're threatening also Democrats. Seems like a little bit weird, suddenly also yes, the Democrats are also threatened. And so we need to start, because it was obvious that if the Trump transition team was threatened, it was threatened by people who are not understanding that democracy works this way. And democracy should be about change. It should be about the majority of people making their choice. But you can't instigate this idea that all the Americans are ignorant who voted for Donald J. Trump. I'm not ignorant. And I don't think that I didn't. When we went to Coachella, I told you I had the possibility of being in the backstage and of being with another 100,000 people here in Coachella with Donald J. Trump. I didn't see ignorant people. I see hardworking people. So why?
You have to it's despise. Perception. Yeah, I mean, it's a perception they create.
Yeah, the perception, but also the fact that a guy who comes out of a university or a college has a superior mindset from a guy who hasn't gone to a college, that's complete BS.
Yeah, exactly.
Because most of the people who have actually made billions, not millions, they didn't go to university, fancy universities or college titles. They were hardworking people from the very start of their life.
Yeah, the college graduates are the ones that become the puppets, the slaves to the system.
Unfortunately. Thank you so much for having me on. Let's pray that we can definitely avoid with these little developments this World War III, because we know that I think Putin, and I saw it from the way he was talking also about Trump in the last few hours. He was kind of smiling. He was like, he was basically saying what they're saying in the Russian media for the last few weeks. Joe Biden is an idiot. He's actually mentally deranged. And if a mentally deranged person has the power to trigger Third World War, that's not really a good thing, but it's not a credible thing. I mean, even the Russians don't believe in this, in all these threats and stuff. I'm going to give nukes to Ukraine. You're going to give nukes to Ukraine. I mean, I think that in the end, the solution will be that Zelensky will be given the possibility to keep that territory which he has still, make it even maybe part of a NATO defense system. So he will be completely, impossible for any invader to. But Russia will keep the Donbass, the Crimea, the Russian areas of Ukraine, because they were always Russian. And so they need to be kept for the Russian people, because the persecution that after 2014, after their revolution against the Russian, because there was a lot of influence of Russia in the politics of Ukraine. Now I see an unstable situation coming in Romania, because Romania this week has elected for the first time a right-wing pro-Russian politician. So NATO who wants to rediscuss also their, because these Romanians are seeing Ukrainians invading their country, the desperate Ukrainians. They're seeing they're bordering with Moldova, with Ukraine, with territories that could be in war because of Russia, and they don't want to have anything to do with it, because I know Romania very well. Romania is very close, historically speaking, culturally speaking, to Russia. So the majority of Romanians want to vote to not be involved in a war against Russia, just like the Hungarians. So now Russia will probably have not only as an ally Viktor Orban, but also the new leader of Romania. But it's possible that NATO will gather some destabilizing move in Romania in the next few days or weeks. So we need to be keeping an eye on that. And also, NATO wants to destabilize Belarus. So keep your geopolitical eyes also on what's going on in Belarus in the next few weeks. And thank you so much for having me on. For our next talk, of course, in 1 month, always with you, Chantelle. It's a pleasure.
Always a pleasure to have you, Leo. Thank you so much. And always a pleasure to have you all in the chats. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I will see you Sunday with Jesse. Take good care, everybody. God bless you all and have a beautiful weekend. Enjoy the rest of your Thanksgiving.
God bless.
Bye.